So, since we already have, everyone who is experienced with the, either of the product, they are already known to, how ERP system work and how things are. But, if I'll not jump into complete the definition instead, because we have everyone who is coming from the experience background. So I'll just jump into the, the major chunk, how the, F&O 365 works as a ERP solution. Okay, so skipping this part, what is the ERP, why it is being used, and what is the purpose of ERP? Let's jump directly onto the implementation. So implementation, for any organization which is going to implement or going to use Dynamics 365 F&O will have to, come up with the environment and the platform. Okay, and the data access, that is, how you are capturing the data and how that data is being made available to the users. So, these are the two phases, for an ERP system to work. So the very first step is, how the data will show up, in what way a user can access the application, what are the authentications required, how the application would be connected, how you will logging in, how you will do the reporting, how you will create the data, you will be pushing in the sales orders, purchase orders, production orders, and how whenever a form loads or a report is generated on screen, how the things work on the database level. So that will all be considered on the data access as well as security. Okay, so this is high level diagram how the 365 works in the real time after it is being implemented any of the customers or the client. So we have different components here. If you could see Azure DevOps, Lifecycle Services, Microsoft Admin Center, Finance and Operation Apps, Azure Active Directory, and these are additional services which works in the background. So, if you could see this particular F&O application is nothing. How do we actually access the F&O is that we access the F&O using a browser. So, whenever one wants to log in, suppose I am logging that, I have to log in as maybe as a procurement manager into the system, I will have a URL. Okay, I will put the URL into the browser and the system will prompt me for the authentication. So this authentication taken care by the Microsoft Azure Active Directory. So every user who is available on the product, within the application, finance and operation application, will have the access and will be assigned the role. So all this authentication is taken care by this layer, that is your Azure Active Directory. So, suppose I am logging in, suppose, if I say, okay, Rajat is logging in and Rajat will, give it his ID and password and, in the background Azure Active Directory, system will go and check whether the user exists with the same password and the username and what role he has. Okay. So Rajat is supposed to be, maybe he is a manager, procurement manager. He will have a procurement manager role. Based on the role, he would be able to access the screens in the system once he logins to the F&O application. Okay, these three components which you see here are completely not associated to user, but these components are the something which they are related to project management and the environment management. So Azure DevOps is the maintained for project management. So whenever a project is being implemented, okay, so all the phases of the product development life cycle are put up onto Azure DevOps. So your Scrum, your all these scrums, your all the tasks which are item which are created, task item which are created for getting the things done within the team, splitting them into sprints, assigning them, getting them complete, and getting all the dashboards for looking for the burnout chart or the hours being spent by the team. All these activities are done on the Azure DevOps. Okay, so every developer will have access to the Azure DevOps. They will log into the DevOps. All the tasks will be assigned to them using the DevOps. So all these scrums are planned through DevOps, and DevOps is closely associated to your Outlook. So whatever items that you perform on the DevOps are sent as a notification on your Outlook. Suppose if tomorrow if I say Rajat has been assigned to one task, a mail will go. The moment I assign a task to Rajat on Azure DevOps, it will be assigned to the Rajat on mail. He will receive a mail on his Outlook saying that okay, a task has been assigned to you. And Lifecycle Services is again a separate portal maintained by Microsoft now with the current, from September, Microsoft has, put down the guidelines where, they are replacing the lifecycle services with the Power Automate Admin Center. And so lifecycle services is a portal where, all the dev boxes, your sandbox, your test environment, your build environment, all the environments, your production environment are accessed through the lifecycle. So all the maintenance for these services, running the upgrade on the services, either it's a dev box or a build server or a UAT server or test server or the production server. Every maintenance or updates, anything which runs through is done from the LCS portal, Lifecycle Services portal of Microsoft. Going forward with this, as I said, in from September, Microsoft have put down some deadlines. Now they are releasing because they want the customers to migrate now, because they are going to obsolete in near future. They are going to obsolete the LCS. The support for LCS will be stopped by Microsoft, and they will be moving all their customers to the Power Automate Admin Center. So going forward, I think in next 4 or 5 months, everything would be on, managing all the servers, managing all the updates and everything on the servers would be done from the Power Automate Admin Center. In fact, the, few other areas, if you take the licensing, earlier used to be a separate case, and now, Microsoft is migrating even licenses structure and everything on to the Power Automate Admin Center, not as a separate, they used to maintain licenses again as a separate part, that it will be put up under a single portal. That will be the Power Automate Admin Center. So this is, Microsoft Office Admin Center. They will be replacing, going forward. These are the details of Azure DevOps, LCS, and few things. I mean, I did not mention there, but we do have certain things called as, I mean, maybe most of you are already aware what we have, tenant and the subscription. What happens is that, every new customer which gets, associated to Microsoft for the very first time, they create a unique ID for that customer that is called as the tenant ID. Okay. Under the tenant, whatever product that customer buys from Microsoft, suppose, I run a company, ABC company, and I go to Microsoft saying that, okay, I want to buy, CRM. Okay, so first they will create a tenant for me, and that will be unique ID. So whatever I am going to purchase from Microsoft, either I purchase, CRM, or after CRM, if I go for, Business Central, and I want, additional Azure, or maybe I want Power Automate services, every other services or the product which we purchase from Microsoft will be added to the same tenant. But every service will have a separate subscription. So if suppose I am taking, I am company ABC, I will have only one tenant. Suppose tenant is tenant one, and suppose I am purchasing CRM as a product. So I will have a subscription ID for my CRM, but my tenant will be only tenant one. Now, suppose tomorrow I am going to Microsoft back again after 1 year saying that, okay, I want to buy F&O, finance and operations. So maybe finance and operations has a separate subscription ID, but my tenant remains the same. So tenant is the ID which Microsoft gives to the customer for the very first time they enroll or they start business with Microsoft. And for every other services which a customer purchases from Microsoft, they are given a subscription ID for each of the applications purchased. Okay. And for the licenses is, within the product, you have the licenses, right? So the licenses are those licenses. What features of a product which are accessible to you are based on the licenses. Like in the, if we take case of F&O finance and operations, we do have licenses for supply chain management as separate. We do have licenses for finance as separate. So if I only purchase licenses of finance, I may not be having access to the trade and logistics and the supply chain management features in the product. But when I take licenses for both the modules and both the areas, I will have access to all the respective modules, either the finance or the supply chain.
What is the difference between this tenant and subscription ID?
See, that's what I'm saying. Whenever for the very first time a customer purchases, suppose, okay, I'll take one example. I'm living in Mumbai, okay, and I have newly come to Mumbai and I go to a hospital, okay. I'm going to that hospital for the very first time. So what the hospital, help desk do? First, they will register my ID. So they might be asking for my name, for my Aadhaar ID, my mobile number to register me to their system. Okay, so every time again, if I go for any issue, for any health issue, again to the same hospital, what they will do is they will ask just my phone number. Based on my phone number, they will get all the history of me that, earlier I have gone on, which dates, which year, for what doctor treatment I have taken from that hospital. Similarly, Microsoft registers a customer with a tenant ID. So whenever the Microsoft registers a customer, they create a tenant ID for that customer. Understood? Now
Yeah, yeah.
subscription is what? That you purchase multiple things from Microsoft. Now similarly, if I am going to hospital, suppose I go with one doctor which is an orthologist and one is for dental doctor. Okay. So
Okay.
so I will have a separate orthopedics, right? And a separate prescription for my dental doctor.
Then,
Correct. And I will pay the separate fees as well to them. So
okay.
subscription is, yani, suppose you for the very first time you are purchasing some product from Microsoft. Microsoft will create a tenant ID for you. And next time, whenever you go back to Microsoft asking for any other product, suppose the first time you registered, then you purchased CRM. So CRM will have its own subscription. Then tomorrow, after 2 years, you go back to Microsoft and say that, okay, I want to purchase F&O. They will have a new subscription ID for F&O, but the tenant ID remains the same. These are the licenses within the product. That is for the user access licenses. So, and this is the deep dive architecture, how F&O as an application works. Okay. So if I take, the client, the topmost layer, that how many ways the application could be accessed. So, coming back here, as I said, I would be focusing more on the implementation environment platform and the data access. Okay. So, this is, how the implementation and access is provided on the application. So the very topmost layer, if you see, I could access F&O application using a mobile app. It could be iOS, Android, or Windows. I can, access from Office 365. I can access through Retail POS or a web browser client. So these are the platforms via which I can access the F&O application. Okay. The second in line is, how many applications or the solutions or modules are provided by Microsoft in F&O. So we have under F&O, if we see as a product, it provides these key areas. You have modules and solution for retail. You have module for finance. You have for project management, human resource management, production processing, supply chain management, where advanced warehousing. Timesheet again follows under the HCM, expense management, budget management. Budget is your forecast and budget management, master planning, forecast, and budget management. Okay, so and how this actually works for F&O, and I mean, some people are already there from Business Central, so I hope Business Central also follows same. I'm not so sure on that. We do have some many of the modules are available out of the box, and some modules which are not available are developed by the Microsoft partners. So whatever the solution, suppose tomorrow I say that I want a particular module for repacking. Maybe I'm coming from industry or bottling plant where, like if I take Coke or Pepsi, what they do is, they take the glass bottles back again to the factory, wash them, clean them, sanitize them, refill them, and pack, right? So maybe, I need a separate complete solution for that. And that solution is developed by maybe Coke as a partner to Microsoft. They would have developed that solution. And that solution will be called as the ISV solution. The solutions which are developed by the Microsoft partners are called as the ISV solution. Like suppose if I take, Accenture is one of the Microsoft partners, Robert Bosch is one of the Microsoft partners. So, tomorrow Accenture develops a solution in finance and operations. It will be called as an ISV solution. So ISV solution are sold by Microsoft along with the partner. So now, going deep dive into the next level. Okay, so first we had how do we access the application. Next here we have what are the, I mean, available modules within the application, and what solutions are available out of the box, which are from Microsoft, what solutions are available, which are developed by the partners. Now, here, if you see, these are more about, how the application interacts with the user interface. Okay, so if I take UI interaction services, these are the forms. Web services, that is the integration that connecting with the other application and bringing in data or sending data from Microsoft. Some additional features, task recorder is for documentation, workflows, business event again is for integration. DIXF is a module available in F&O which is used for importing and exporting data using the Excels or CSV files or XML files. Okay, batch is again one of the area for schedule batch. reporting, that is a reports and analytics, security. So these components are the components which, are the part of the application where, which runs in the background to exchange the data and make things work on the system. Okay, so some are, if you see the batch framework, this is the batch framework which is usually done for, auto schedule batches. Okay, then web services for interacting with the other applications. Then you have workflows for the approval processes. Business event is again a different area where, it is being used as a triggers to, run integrations particularly or sending notifications. Okay, DIXF is again the module. So these application level contents, sections, these sections are the frameworks available within the F&O. So batch is a framework, UI interface services is a separate framework, SSRS report is a separate framework, security is a separate framework. These are technical frameworks which run in the background to make things work on the screen. Second is like, how the application is hosted. Okay, so F&O as an application, it is hosted in two way. Okay, the majorly, people, most of the clients go with the cloud version, but they do have on-premise version, and slowly, Microsoft is pushing to, bring customers mostly on cloud. Because the earlier versions, if you see, like you have AX 2009 and AX 2012, they are all locally hosted server-based applications, right? Where the application used to be having a client, which is a console-based client. You will install the client, you can configure the client application, and you can just communicate with the AOS, and this is how it used to work with the earlier versions. But now with the cloud, everything is taken care by Microsoft because the production itself is hosted on the cloud. But it do have a version where, you could host locally on your servers. And there are few differences how the things are hosted on cloud, because whatever being hosted, the production servers, the test servers, the dev boxes on cloud are maintained by Microsoft, taking care of their backup recovery, security, their downtime, and maintaining the power management, maintaining the storage. Everything is taken care by Microsoft. Okay, and resizing. Suppose, initially, when the business started with F&O, suppose they are starting into year 2020, and the required size for the data was suppose 20 GB now, but you have grown to size 100. So it will be taken care by Microsoft. But these things are not so taken care by Microsoft in case of on-premise. On-premise is for any customer who is going with the on-premise model. They have to take care of or their own infrastructure, where Microsoft give the guidelines that, this is the minimum required infrastructure things you have to maintain, and maintaining those is taken care of completely by the company or the customer. And the other differences is like in case of cloud deploy, I mean, where the F&O is hosted on cloud, it uses the Azure SQL database, and where it is on premise, it is uses Microsoft SQL Server. Okay, and Azure SQL database is completely online service. Okay, and the authentication here is again, we used to have the Active Directory that we used to have in 2012, something kind of that, and here we have the Azure Active Directory for authentication in case of the cloud hosted environment. Okay, and if you see on the right, the green vertical bar here, these are the services. If you see, these are for, the additional services which are for the support. Okay, for server maintenance, that is, your hotfix and updates. So whenever Microsoft releases, so this particular section represents the support things which are available, the framework which supports which are involved as a support part for running an application. And this represents your editor for development. So it is break up on the two-way X and the Y axis. So X, you have all the, the components of the F&O as an application where it works. And these are, how that support system works is on the y-axis. So these are the definitions with the, the architecture we had. Some difference between the on-premise and cloud. Some other, comparisons between the on-premise and cloud. So, but this is, how the flow works. Okay, so I will just give a some brief about how do we actually work with the development. So coming back to I would try to highlight the uh, you know uh, the important components, for development in F&O. Okay, so very first thing is, in the training, our focus is on, for the candidates who are not from the technical background, the candidates who are not from the development background. So, we start with the basic development in X++. The language that we use for development in finance and operations is X++. And the this training starts with the basic usage of X++, how to use X++, how to write code in X++, how we are going to use Visual Studio. The editor that we use for development is Visual Studio. Knowing these different features in Visual Studio, creating the initial elementary batch. The very first class or the second class will cover or something around will have how we are going to create a program in F&O. Okay, so it involves everything getting introduced to using a Visual Studio, creating a project in Visual Studio, creating your program in Visual Studio, writing a basic program in Visual Studio. Then, with these going forward batches, we will have, what loop data types, loops. Okay, how do we create classes and objects in F&O? Okay, and once we are comfortable, along with that, we will also practice on, working on the tables. So, the very first two will be firstly, in getting you introduced to the Visual Studio and creating a program in F&O, accessing, running the program and how to see the output of the program in a browser. Okay, with will the very first beginning, we will start with the X++, and then, we will focus on, how to write code in X++ with the complete, either using the classes and objects. Third, we jump on to the, creating tables and capturing the data in tables, how to write queries in tables. So this is how, I put the roadmap to, the classes I'm going to take going forward. The first will be your first program in X++, second. So this will include everything, Visual Studio, introduction. Okay. So once we are familiar with that, we will write, develop code, develop code. Oh, sorry, develop code, classes, tables, basic queries in X++. So, the very first focus will be this in the training. And once we are completed with this, so this section is complete, then we focus on forms, Then we have, the additional frameworks. Frameworks we have is, we have DIXF, that is your data migration framework, importing and exporting data from Microsoft, batch framework, workflows. Okay. And we do have SSRS reports. Okay. So we have, these are the frameworks which we use, come across in day to day, our development. So there are few other frameworks as well. I'm just putting down, a few which are, known to everyone, which are, kind of universal, whichever platform you are working or whichever product you are working. So, there are additional frameworks as well within, we have business event as one of the frameworks. Okay, so there are other frameworks also which we do have, which we will be taking care. Okay, and once we are done with the four, these four, initial key areas in F&O, then we further move on to your advanced. In fact, these are also advanced because data migration itself is not just single thing we say it, but it is a lot. It has entities. Okay, entity development. Then exposing entity for integration, using entity as OData service. So, though it looks as a single term when I say DMF, but DMF, bounds up with this complete set. We have so many things which are taken care in the DMF. So, downsizing the scope for the training is, there are a lot many things, and it's completely, how fast we could move with the training depending on the audience, the candidates we have. So, if candidates are more comfortable, already comfortable with the development, we could give more time to these things, okay? Because DMS, if is again a very important area in F&O where we could do the integrations a lot, and for usually exchanging the messages, sending it to the other systems, or for exchanging the flat files between two systems, we use DMF a lot. Even for data migrations, DMF is used a lot. So though these framework look very small, but these framework have a lot within themselves. And then maybe we could further take up the integrations. Integrations is like, business event is one of the key concepts for the integrations, if you see. So we do have business events. Then we do have, maybe creating an Power App flow, Power Automate flow could be taken up as one of the exercises. Okay, because I when we talk about Power Automate flow, Power Automate itself is a huge area. You can create multiple types of applications. So I cannot be taking up, working completely on Power Automate, but maybe one or two exercise where we could just get some data, fetch some data from F&O and use it in the Power Automate. How to connect a Power Automate to F&O. So, these will be the areas I will be covering up. Now, suppose for the created sales order, I have to send the data to CRM, for example. Okay. So what I could do is, I would have to first create a business event, then a Power Flow. Okay. So, the moment sales order is created in F&O, business event is a trigger. If I say as a layman, it's a trigger. So the moment a record is created in table for creating a sales order, it will trigger the business event, and the business event will call your Power Automate flow, and Power Automate flow will push the data to Dataverse for CRM.
Okay.
So because it's not just one of the cases, Power Automate again is used for your notifications. So Power Automate is used for notifications as alerts. So this is, sending emails to customer.
Okay.
This could be
Sounds good.
group emails. So, Power Automate itself is a separate platform. It's not a part of F&O,
Yeah.
right? Similarly, like we have Azure as a separate platform, right? Similarly, Power Automate is a platform, separate platform, not a part of F&O. See, if I talk about this framework, DMF is a framework within F&O, but Power Automate is not a framework within F&O. Power Automate itself is a separate product in Microsoft, provided by Microsoft. Power Automate could be used in your Business Central. It could be used along with your CRM. It could be used along with any of the products of Microsoft. It could be used irrespective of, you are working in F&O or not. Power Automate is a platform where you just, it is a less code driven application development platform where, you create something called as a workflow based, methodology. You have toward defining the steps to achieve your results. Okay. Where you will write less code, or usually Microsoft says that, okay, you could develop Power Automate flow or the Power Automate app with no code development. Okay, so that's a separate platform, but it has more capability when it comes to communicating or exchanging messages with other system. And so it is used as a middleware for integrations, or sending in information outside, or bringing in information in F&O or CRM or Business Central. It's not
Yeah,
a
I got it.
framework within F&O.